Have the noises of the 4 fallen angels bound underneath the Euphrates River been recorded? Or maybe the scorpion-type beast that will be released from the earth when the bottomless pit is opened in Revelation 9. Video recently has surfaced of what's allegedly archaeologists digging at the Euphrates River site where it's been dried up, and the video claims to have recorded the noises of these fallen angels or the beasts that are trapped within the bottomless pit. Revelation 9 verse 1, And the 5th angel sounded, and I saw a star fallen from heaven to the earth. To him was given the key to the bottomless pit. Revelation 9 verse 3, Then out of the smoke locusts came upon the earth, and to them was given power, as the scorpions of the earth have power. Luke 21 verse 26, men's hearts failing them for fear of the expectation of those things which are coming upon the earth, for the powers of the heavens will be shaken. Bible prophecy is unfolding all around us, and has been since the beginning of time. The earth, people, and society as a whole really looks to be moving everything into places to fulfill the last days prophecies. People will mock and scoff at us as we continue to look for signs and to point out the things that are happening and referencing them to Bible prophecy. 2 Peter chapter 3 verses 3 through 4 says, Knowing this first, that scoffers will come in the last days, walking according to their own lusts, and saying, Where is the promise of his coming? For since the fathers fell asleep, all things continue as they were from the beginning of creation.
In the middle of the night, 20 years ago, the most powerful country in the world unleashed its might on the Iraqi capital. Explosions in Baghdad marked the start of the US-led coalition's operation to remove Saddam Hussein from power. At dawn, far to the south, hundreds of thousands of Allied troops invaded Iraq over the Kuwaiti border. Their immediate objective, the city of Basra. a city which was and still is home to Zainab Hamid and her family. Zainab explains that she was 7 years old when the invasion began. Her mother and 2 of her brothers were killed in a coalition airstrike on her neighborhood. Zainab was among the injured. The invasion changed my life, she says, and changed my country for the worse. The threat that Saddam posed to the world, and in particular his possession of weapons of mass destruction, was the reason the coalition gave for its invasion. Weapons that were never found. One of the first British soldiers into Basra 20 years ago was Alan Jones of the Royal Marines.
Legal justification for that war probably wasn't as foolproof as what it should have been. You can't not regret the catastrophes that followed because of it. You know, mass collateral, mass loss of life within the Iraqi population. You do think about that a lot, yes. So regret, yes, it is now a regret for me.
The catastrophes came thick and fast. After the coalition had declared its mission accomplished, Iraq was soon engulfed in sectarian violence and then full-blown civil war. Dr. Ali Mathana was an Iraqi exile who returned to his country after Saddam had been removed. 20 years since the statue of Saddam was pulled down, Dr. Mathana walked to the spot where it used to stand with a question.
What was the reason behind invading the Iraq? This is the question I'm raising for the United Kingdom and the United States. And I hope someone could answer me. Why? Why did you come and destroy this country?
I was told by a general, very active, very famous, I will not drop names. If people think that, you know, I tell everybody, Tom, Chris, take it to the Lord in prayer. But the reason for the Iraqi war, the one that most people were, you know, familiar with, obviously, and the Congress was told, that was superficial. The real story, and Tom, I'm going to give it right back to you, is what they were looking for. They were looking for a certain piece, if you will, the key, maybe one of the literal keys that would grant to them the technology of the ancients, and it was a fight behind the scenes between the special forces community of major countries to get a hold of some of these artifacts. Now, that sounds like something out of Hollywood, but remember this, Hollywood gets its cues from the intelligence community, and the reason they leak this information into the mainstream via science fiction is to pre-program you to the point where you dismiss it as just, quote, fiction, but then it's deep in your subconscious when they're ready to release the truth. They trigger and I don't understand all of the mind control techniques, but consider it a reserve data drop of information that they bring forth at the appropriate time and know how to activate the belief section or the belief section of your brain. So Tom, go ahead and share on Iraq, because I think that's fascinating. I was privy in the background, Doug, meaning in real time, to what was going on to that. That may sound mysterious, but I'm not trying to be, you know, baiting anybody, but I was. And the fact that the fight and the war was on for those artifacts and for DNA, and I think this is where it's going to get really fascinating. So,
which actually kind of plays off of what was going on in the Iraq War, and the fact, Steve, that they were indeed looking for the key. They had found the location, but they didn't have the key, and that's what they were looking for. And actually, that's what the book Armand Gate is really all about, although it's a novel and it goes, you know, into the whole thing about the finding of intact DNA and a book of life code and the recreation of Nephilim and UFOs and all that stuff. It's a novel, but it was actually spurred by this idea of why were we going into Iraq? And so I'm glad you asked me to say this, Doug, because I actually had a real experience around this. And here's the thing. Steve's mentioning that they went there to find a key. They went there to find something related to portals, mystical doorways. So the idea that the United States had invaded Iraq to capture something that Saddam Hussein had uncovered during his reconstruction of ancient Babylon. People don't know the depth of the literally hundreds of millions of dollars that he was spending in excavation, what he was looking for, the fact that he intended to rebuild ancient Babylon, but the fact that he found things that the world is not aware of sounds too strange to be true. But so I was on Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie. This was right during the Gulf War. And so the big question on everybody's mind at that time was, why did the United States go in to Iraq? Why was George Bush so stubbornly resolved to take the United States into Iraq, ancient Babylon, even though Iraq had not been connected with any good intelligence to the events of September 11, 2001? And so I went on Coast to Coast. I'm talking about something else, but this question comes up, and something very strange happened. George asked me why I thought that the United States had gone into Iraq, and so I was making these various points. I was saying that some people believed that the invasion had something to do with creating a strategic placement of U.S. military resources against what the administration saw as a growing threat from Islamic radicals, which we can see in the Islamic nation today. Some people said, that that's why we went there. I said that other people believed that it was an effort to seize and maintain control of Iraq oil reserves, and of course the Bush family are heavily invested in oil, so that might have been a reason. I pointed out that there were those who believed that 911 was actually either a convenient or an orchestrated false flag. A lot of people out there were saying that would allow the Bush administration to extend like a global domination project presence. But so I was just throwing out all these various ideas, and I'm on here, and I'm late night, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. Then I suggest that there's another reason, more esoteric, and it had to do with biblical sites in Babylon, which had been uncovered during Saddam Hussein's reconstruction of the ancient city, and that he may have uncovered something that the U.S. administration wanted. They went there to capture it. And so we went on and we did our show. I finished the show with Norrie. It's probably 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, my time, and I'm going to go to bed, but I'm sitting in my office, so I go to check my email before I go to bed, and here I have an email, and this person is saying that they are, now get this, they're saying they are the curator of the National Museum of Iraq, the Baghdad Museum that contains all these relics from the Babylonian Mesopotamian civilization, saying that they had been listening to the radio show, and they wanted to tell me something. So I opened the email. This person claims that my last idea, the fact that the U.S. had gone there to capture something that Saddam Hussein had uncovered in all of his excavation work, that was spot on. So here's the deal. The emailer, they give me a temporary password to the museum's digital back door because they want me to see what they're calling proof that what I had said was not, in fact, a conspiracy, that, in fact, it was true. So the first thing I do is I verify the email that it's actually from, the IraqMuseum.com, and it was. Then I go to make sure that the hidden back page is actually an extension. I actually went to Google or Yahoo, and I looked up the museum, went to it, and then used the extension to make sure that I wasn't, somebody wasn't pulling some kind of an elaborate trick on me. And I confirmed that in fact was true. And it pops up this little thing on the page. It wants me to enter in my temporary password and log in, which I do, which this person gave me. And I got to tell you, I could not believe. This page opens up, and there are literally hundreds and hundreds of step-by-step images of the first day of the invasion of U.S. forces, the very first day of the Iraq invasion. Where do we go? We went directly to the museum, the Baghdad Museum. And these images, somebody's got a camera, right, and they are just literally clicking pictures, or it was video and then they saved them as images. I'm low-tech, I don't know how nothing works, but literally step-by-step images of the first day of invasion showing a large U.S. military personnel presence, the U.S. ambassador, and they are there at the museum. there's this woman that's got traditional head covering. And if anybody's listening to this program tonight and they work at the Baghdad Museum, you know what I'm saying is absolutely the truth, and you have the images, and you could make them available to the public now if you wanted to. This woman with this headdress, with the this traditional head covering, she greets the U.S. President and the U.S. Ambassador, and she leads this delegation of soldiers. They're all carrying weapons, and they're all in their garb, and there's a lot of them. And there's a whole bunch of Iraqis that are just following them around because they don't know what's going on. And she takes them into the museum, but then she takes them to a back door in the museum where the public's not allowed to go. This door has a great big lock on it. She unlocks. And these armed soldiers and the ambassador follows her down a very steep stairway, and they go down underneath the Baghdad Museum. And there is a gigantic underground storage room down there, something like you might see in an Indiana Jones movie. And inside, there are dozens, if not hundreds, of large wooden crates. And they start opening these crates up, and they're pulling out stuff. And this person, whoever's taking pictures, picture, every second, another picture. If I could have put these on one of those Disney things and spun it, I could have watched it like a movie in real time. Man, they start pulling out superb gold and silver artifacts, stuff that the world assumedly has never seen. Invaluable items that have been dug up by Saddam Hussein from the sands of ancient Babylon. We're talking gold and silver masks of kings, sacred jewelry, but also cuneiform tablets, unknown secrets, steles bearing mysterious inscriptions, images, papyrus, strange-looking objects like headdresses and vessels and swords and shields, all this stuff. And I sat there, it's 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, I sat there, just mesmerized by this, going through image after image after image. But then I saw something. Suddenly, the pictures that I'm watching, they depict like a change in the observers' demeanors. The crowd suddenly, they're either excited or they're agitated. I can't quite tell, but they're like jaw dropped. So I wasn't sure what was going on, and it happens right as these soldiers begin opening several really large, bigger than coffin-sized crates, probably about 3 times as large as a full-size adult coffin. And these were back in the corners of that concealed room. And as they open them, they look inside, and they don't take anything out. They gesture for the ambassador, and the ambassador goes over, and he looks down inside in the boxes. And then and I don't know if he tells them to reseal them, but they don't take anything out. They reseal those without removing anything, and immediately the soldiers come down, like 4 soldiers, 2 on each corner of these big crates, and they start carrying these things back up that steep stairway to the transport helicopter that's outside, and then they depart the city of Baghdad with those containers containing whatever in the world it was they had. I'm sitting here, I was literally flabbergasted. I couldn't believe it. I realized at that moment that whatever else the U.S. military was doing in Iraq, Babylon, whatever else they were doing, the minute they arrived in the plains of Shinar, they went straight to a top-secret room beneath the Babylon Museum. The people at the Babylon Museum, if they're listening to this program, they know what I'm saying is absolutely the truth, where Saddam Hussein had hidden objects of evidently national interest that had been dug up from the ancient world. They removed those containers in which something the American government wanted, something from ancient Babylon, had been found. Now, what it was, I have no idea because they didn't take it out of the box. But I could tell you it took like 4 strong soldiers standing on all 4 corners of these crates to carry them up out of that steep staircase, put them on a U.S. military transport vehicle, and flew out of town with them, and they took several of them out of there. And what's amazing is they didn't act like they even cared about these irreplaceable golden masks and jewels of ancient kings and queens that would have been absolutely irreplaceable, absolutely without monetary value. I mean, these things would have been worth literally tens of millions of dollars or whatever that have been worth. They didn't care nothing about that. Whatever was in those boxes boxes they took them. So I go to bed. I have intentions of getting up the next morning and going through the rest of the images, which were probably not the ones that were all that important anyway, because I walked through all of the images I cared about. But when I woke up the next morning, my password was expired. The curator would not respond to any of my emails. But I got to tell you that I found out for myself that there was definitely something else. So what was it? Was it ancient portal technology? Did the U.S. move it to an undisclosed location? Yeah, they did that, whatever it was. But did they do that so that it would be in the hands of a future world leader? I just absolutely have no idea. And from that day forward...
Well, hey, Tom? Yep, Tom, I might be able to fill in the blanks on that. And now, for the record, ladies and gentlemen, I did not hear Tom on Coast to Coast. I did not talk to him about this. This is the first time I've ever heard this. But during that time, again, I was in contact, and they contacted me because evidently something, and only they can tell you why, but the point being is that they got what they were looking for. And the general told me this. He said, Steve, we wanted two things, and we got it. We got it before anybody else got to it, okay? He told me, and these are the guys that operate beyond the regular military. They're beyond the NSA. They're beyond a lot of things, okay? But they wanted two things, Tom, and this is, you don't know, so I'll fill in the blank there. According to active duty 4-star, the point is they got the DNA that they're looking for, but they also got the control mechanism and the power source to basically activate what most people have come to know as the Tower of Babel. God destroyed it, obviously, but the point is by confounding their language. But that which Saddam Hussein had was the primary reason that we went into Iraq. The ancient technology, and God bless all of you who are listening to this that have cosmic and magic clearance, the technology, the DNA, and when I say DNA, I'm not just talking about DNA of the entities that they can reconstitute, etc., etc. I'm talking about the formulas that you've referred to so many times, in quoting the passage in concerning Nimrod, that he began to become a Gibborim. So I can only tell you, Tom, according to the sources I had, and they contacted me, and again, I want to share something real quick, and I'll turn it right back. The people that contact me for one reason. They say that because I've been telling people the truth. That may not go well with my critics. When I can check out a certain general through different ways, or a couple generals, and people say, well, you can't possibly know those guys. And I said, well, I'm sorry, but I do. And so even from in the military community, now I'm not bragging, but what I'm saying, look at tonight. I have never talked to you, Tom Horn, about this incident. You have never talked to me about this incident. Yet tonight we're putting, 2 and 2 together, and see, it's kind of like, I would say this, it's a binary binding of truth for a single purpose, a single focus. If they've got that, they've got the technology of the ancients. You know how the Pentagon refers to these guys? He calls them the gods of the Sumerians, okay? The gods, little g's. So the point is that the fallen angel technology, the fallen angel power sources, this is what the illuminated ones, the globalists, if you will, seek to, number one, control the world with, but they actually believe they can make war against God. So knowing that, the point is that it puts the whole battle of Armageddon, it puts the whole battle in the heavenlies, where the book of Revelation talks about the devil and his angels fighting against God and his angels, and they get kicked out of heaven. This is, in my opinion, ladies and gentlemen, what you just heard Tom Horn lay out to you is another one of those seminal points. The seminal point in history, because there is no way we talked about this before the living God. There is no way I knew what he knew or saw what he saw, yet those things dovetail. So, Tom, I think that's fascinating. Let me give you
you were in Afghanistan in 2002, and you were called into a very remote section of Afghanistan because a patrol had basically gone missing.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Well, just around nothing.
Right. So very remote.
Yeah, very remote. So we flew in. About 4 kilometers. We're hiking through the same area where they were supposed to make one of their checkpoints, one of their rally points. And before we left, there was all kinds of what happened with an ambush. That was even odd because at point of ambush, you would call for maybe close air support, something, okay? There was no calls made, just off the grid. So we're coming down a mountainside, and there was a nice path, goat path. As we bent around this corner, you could see this opening of the cave. There's a cave as we're coming around. And then I see there's a lot of rocks, which is another oddity, and then bone matter. When I'm not close enough to identify what kind of bones, but I did see something I knew was a piece of our communications equipment. So instantly we're thinking ambush, maybe animal, it could be anything. And there was enough room in front of this cave, but it had a sheer drop-off. But there was enough room that we actually got into a decent dispersal in case of ambush.
You see something coming out of the cave, and it's moving with a speed and agility that catches you off guard.
Everybody. And he comes out. It was a man at least 12 to 15 feet in height. This is a monster. Red beard, then his hair was longish, past the shoulder, a scarlet red, and Dan runs at him and starts shooting, which broke all of us into the reality. Because it was so surreal.
Now your training is kicking in.
Oh yeah,
okay.
Muscle memory, complete muscle memory. While Dan is moving at him, another bro of mine's laying down fire, and I start firing. He skewers Dan. He's now got him on this pike. We went through him. And he's still got him, and he's coming after more. We all just clicked in. I don't know what it was, but I remember we're all like, shoot him in the face, shoot him in the face. Our weapons components were in force. We had 308s, and we had Barrett 50s. This is sounding longer than it took. We're talking 30 seconds. And he's taking multiple hits, and it's still moving, and it's still moving.
Along the prison wall, I heard a young girl calling. Michael, they have taken you away, for you stole Trevelyan's car, so the young might see the mark. Now a prison ship lies waiting in the bay. Lord, I the feet of Atherton Ride, where once we watched the small free birds fly. Our love was on the wing. We had dreams and songs to sing. It's so lonely round the fields of Atherton Ride. By a lonely prison wall, I heard a young man calling. Nothing matters, Mary, when you're free. Against the famine and the crown, I rebel, they cut me down. Now you must raise our child with dignity. On your own now, give it a lash. Here we go. By a lonely harbor wall, she watched the last star falling as the prison ship sailed out against the sky. For she lived in hope and pray, for her love in Botany Bay. It's so lonely round the fields of Athenry. Let's hear it now. Lonely the fields of Athenry, where once we watched the small free birds fly. Our love was on the wing, dreams and songs to sing. It's so lonely round the field. One more last time, let's hear it now. Lonely the fields of Athenry, where once we watched the small free birds fly. Wonderful. Great stuff.